check on those. So if you're coming in from YouTube, hopefully you have audio. I know last time I went back and realized that you did not. So this time I've put a comment that if you can't hear us, then you can go to www.facebook.com/thedigglesfamily. And likewise, if there's some sort of major problem on the Facebook feed, you can go to our YouTube channel and hopefully it will be doing better there. Today's story goes away a little bit from Hero again and explores another character. This one's called A Girl Named Dirty. And it has a little illustration there in the beginning. Forever and always, the caretaker of Great Park brought those who were hurt or frightened, sick or broken to his wife, Mercy, because she was wise, and whatever she touched was made better. Except Dirty. Dirty refused to become better. Caretaker had found her outside Stonegate entrance, rooting around for food after a burner had beaten her. The child was covered with welts and bruises. When Caretaker approached the girl, she immediately stood to her feet and shouted, "I'm Dirty. I never wash. I never cry. I'll fight anything that raises a fist to me." Then she fainted from her wounds and hunger. Caretaker brought her to Mercy, but all of the old woman's efforts could not help the girl to enjoy life in Great Park. Dirty hated the cottage. She despised the people who lived there. She thought Caretaker, with his tree hat and jingling pockets, was stupid. She hated Hero's ugly scar. "I'm not going to live with those creeps," she declared one day as she stomped off to the barnyard to make her home with the pigs. From that day on, she tromped in the mud and slept in the sheds. She practiced pig grunts. She learned pig calls. "Hoi, soy, 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 hoi." She watched the sows give birth to litters and made pets of the piglets. And because the pigs were gentle, she loved them. But she refused to love people. Another outcast was living in the cottage, a girl Dirty's age, who had a disease that had made her crippled. Dirty hated the crippled girl because she was ugly. "Swee, swee," she would say to her pigs. "How can they live with that ugly thing? Why don't they just get rid of her?" Dirty sat on a big sow and watched when Caretaker carried the crippled girl on a pallet into the warm sunshine. She heard that crone of a housewife sing songs. Dirty made pig grunts to drown out the sound. At first, Mercy tried to persuade her to come into the cottage for meals, but she would not. Then Mercy carried nourishing lunches to the dung heap where Dirty liked to sit, and she ate there with the girl. And we're testing, and the audio is working. Okay. Then Mercy carried nourishing lunches to the dung heap where Dirty liked to sit. Mom slammed the laptop shut and it was still talking. Oh, was it the phone or the computer? Okay. So we have a computer that is still playing the video. So we will, I guess, maybe just take the computer to the other room and Okay.
Top-notch professional stuff, I'm telling you.
Yes. All right. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. Then Mercy carried nourishing lunches to the dung heap where Dirty liked to sit, and she ate there with the girl. Finally, Dirty refused any food from Mercy's hand. "I'll eat the pig slop," she said. "If it's good enough for pigs, it's good enough for me." Finally, the wise woman and her husband decided to leave Dirty alone. The girl would have to learn that what was fine for pigs was not always right for children. So Dirty lived in the pig pen in back of Caretaker's cottage and never left it, except to creep into deepest forest on evenings of the great celebration. Dirty loved to watch the dancing and the singing and the feasting and the joyful fellowship. She hid herself so well, none of the subjects of the king knew that Dirty watched them on the nights when the sacred circle of flames was lit. At first, entrance, when all the subjects became real, seemed stupid to Dirty. She had been irritated to discover that the simpering Amanda was really a princess. She had thought Amanda's heirs were all bragging. She was furious when Mercy walked through the sacred flames and became the most beautiful of women. She had snorted when silly Caretaker had become Ranger Commander. What kind of tricks were they trying to pull on her? No wonder they were happy and kind. It was easy to laugh if you were really a princess. It was easy to be kind if you were really beautiful. It was a snap to be good if you had all that power. But what if you were just ordinary and never became anything else? Life was not so easy then. Dirty hated the subjects of the king all the more, but for some reason, she could not stay away from their great celebrations. One night, Dirty hid in the hollow stump of a felled tree and watched celebrants making entrance through the sacred flames. Looking through the dancing fire, she could see that banquet tables were being spread with glorious foods. She had brought a dried ear of corn from the pig trough and was munching on its hard kernels. Suddenly, she heard someone crying, "Alms! Alms for the poor!" She peeked her head out of her hole and saw a beggar, all ragged and threadbare. Too late. The beggar had seen her and was coming her way. She grunted and grunted, hoping to scare him off. He peeked into the black hollow of the stump. "Aren't you coming to the great celebration?" the man asked. Dirty climbed out. She got down on all fours and pushed her nose into the dirt. She snorted. She made a pig call. "Hoi, soi, 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 hoi." The beggar was not fooled into thinking she was a pig. "Come," he said. "Come, go through the flames with me. Be my guest at the banquet table." Dirty looked at him. She showed her teeth. She grunted again. She said, "Swee, swee, go with you? You're nothing but an ugly beggar. I'd rather be with the pigs." The beggar touched her gently on the shoulder. Dirty drew back, but her arm felt warm where his hand had been. "Oh, Dirty," he said, "don't you know? All the subjects of the king are nothing more than ugly beggars." With that, he moved off. She was astonished that he hadn't hit her with his staff or shouted, "You filth, who are you to call me ugly?" Dirty watched the beggar make entrance. She heard the rangers salute. She saw the glad clamor of hello in inmost circle. She watched the beggar become real. Through the burning flames, she saw that he was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. He was the king himself. And he had said to her, "Come with me." At that moment, Dirty, unwashed and smelling of the pig pen, began to love the king. Longing filled her heart. She wanted to be as beautiful as he. The music for celebration struck up. The king disappeared into the happy crowd. Dirty hid back in her hole. From her hiding place, she could see latecomers hurrying to make entrance. Far off, hastening through the forest, she spotted Mercy and Caretaker making their way toward the sacred flames. And I'll pause there to show you guys the picture. Okay. Okay, so Mercy and Caretaker were making their way toward the sacred flames. As they approached, Dirty could see that they were holding the crippled girl between their locked arms. They were taking her to the celebration. Dirty wanted a better view. She scooted out of her hole to see if that ugly creature would become real. She watched as the three made the kingdom vow. To the king! To the restoration! She watched them pass through the flames. Ha, thought Dirty. Mercy became beautiful. Caretaker became the ranger commander. But the crippled girl was still deformed. Wait, what were Ranger Commander and Mercy doing now? The people parted as they carried crippled girl through the crowd, toward the king. Dirty watched as the king smiled at the crippled girl. She saw him bend over and lift her into his arms. She saw him cradle that stupid girl's head against his chest. The beautiful man was holding that ugly thing. He was speaking to her. No, no, thought Dirty. He asked me. Then Dirty gasped. The king leaned over and kissed the girl in his arms. At his kiss, she suddenly became real. Her body straightened. She was lovely and shining. It could have been me, thought Dirty. If only I had not been so piggish. If only. Dirty was filled with rage. Swee, swee, you stupids, you stupids. but she was really angry with herself. The girl crawled off into the night, squealing. Back to her pigs she went, back to the only things she had let herself love. The next morning, Dirty sat on the dung heap and watched Caretaker carry the crippled girl into the warm sunlight. Ha, she thought. Swee, she's still an ugly cripple. But wait, the crippled girl was singing. The pig girl crept out through the gate so she could examine the crippled girl more closely. Hearing a sound, the crippled girl turned her face to look at the crawling girl. Her face was as beautiful as it had been when the king kissed her. Even Dirty knew that no one could possibly think the girl ugly once you had looked into her face. It shone. So that's what happens when you are kissed by the king, thought Dirty. She remembered the warm, gentle touch of his hand. The thought of going back to the pigs was awful now. The thought of mud was terrible. The thought of living in the shed, of eating slop, was horrible. Dirty would have given them all up for one more chance to say, "Yes, I'd love to be your guest." But it was too late. She had become more of a pig than ever. He would never love her, never kiss her. When Dirty discovered she was crying in front of the girl with the shining face, she ran into the forest. It took days for Caretaker to find her. When he did, she had clean hands and a clean face. Her hair and nails had been washed in Lake Marmo. Her clothes had been scrubbed in a nearby stream, but she was still crying. Caretaker lifted her into his arms with a sound of jingling and carried her, as he did all wounded things, to Mercy. Mercy was delighted. "Why, who is this?" she asked. I'm Dirty," the girl answered between sobs. "But you're all clean," said Mercy, meaning to be kind. No, the child sobbed all the more. "I've washed and washed, but I'm still dirty. I'm all pig inside. The king will never love me. It's too late." Mercy shook her head knowingly. "We shall see what the king has to say about that." So Mercy took the pig girl to the next great celebration. Rangers stood watch all around the outer rim of the circle of flames. Dirty pulled on the cloak of one of them and asked, "Is the beggar coming tonight?" When the tall man shook his head, no, her heart sank. Dirty followed Mercy, who had stepped into the fire. The heat seared the pig girl's heart. She felt as though everything inside of her was being burned. The girl screamed and Mercy put her arms around her. She whispered, "Don't be afraid. The pain is only for a moment." It's no use, Dirty cried. "The king is not coming. He is the one I must see. No one else can make me clean." With that, the two passed through, and the girl looked up into the unspeakable beauty of the young Mercy, whose long black hair now brushed her waist. Mercy took the girl's hand. "Let me tell you a wonderful secret," she said. "All the people of the kingdom know it. It is one of the first lessons they must learn. The king does not have to come in order for us to see him. He is always present." Dirty stopped crying. She looked at Mercy. "I don't understand what you mean." "Listen," said Mercy. She held her finger to her mouth for silence. "Listen, and you will hear him speak. Be still. He has something to say to you." Dirty wiped her tears. She closed her eyes and listened as hard as she could. Yes, there was something. She could hear someone speaking. It was the voice of the beggar king. He was saying, come with me. Be my special guest at the banquet table." Dirty kept her eyes closed. His special guest. She could feel something pouring over her. It flowed down through her, starting with her head, then behind her eyes, all through the knots and gnarls of her insides. It was warm. It was gentle. It was fluid. Mercy whispered, "It's king's love, Dirty. King's love." Dirty could hear the voice again. The king was laughing. Then he stopped. He said, "I'm so glad you'd rather have me than your pigs." The warm flood had reached her toes. Dirty felt as if she were being held by the king, just like the crippled girl. She felt his kiss. Mercy was right. You did not have to see the king to be surrounded by the power of his love. Dirty heard music. The violinists and the harpists had begun to play. It was time for the dance which began the celebrations. She had watched it many times from the outside. Now she was in its very middle. All the subjects joined hands in one huge circle. Dirty wanted to dance. She wanted to sing and shout. She turned to Mercy. The king does love me. I'm clean. I'm clean. The king has made me clean. Mercy took her hand and drew her into the circle of dancers within the sacred flames. Someone took her other hand. The musicians began the beat. The girl knew the dance would begin slowly, then build, that the circle would turn in perfect order, then move faster and faster and faster. She knew the dance steps. She had watched them many times. But she didn't know the subjects would all sing her song. From all around the dancing circle it rose. I'm clean. I'm clean. The king has made me clean. She's clean. She's clean. The king has made her clean. And the circle moved faster and faster and faster. The subjects of the king sang and danced, rejoicing. But no one sang any louder or danced any harder than Dirty, who had become Cleone, the clean one. So the pig girl left her pigs for the sake of one she loved, and she became the clean one, who had a tender place in her heart for all things ugly, because she knew a king who could find something beautiful in every garbage heap. Thank you all for coming. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter. And if there's anything in particular that you would like to comment on about the story, a part that was your favorite, feel free to do that. For me, I think one thing that stood out the most was how when Dirty, at that point, realized how much the king did love her, but that she had rejected him, how she tried to get all clean on the outside first before realizing that that still didn't change who she was on the inside. And I think a lot of times we try to do that too. We try to do everything ourselves instead of just going and asking to be made clean and changed from the inside. So that is all we have for Tales of the Kingdom. For those of you who have watched our last story begin, if you have any questions for the authors or about the story or about their lives, just let me know. And I'm currently gathering those for when we have the interview. I hope that you all have a great night, and I will need one of you to stop the live.
Make sure you said that's all for the Tales of the Kingdom.
Yeah, all for the Tales of the Kingdom for tonight.
Yes, tomorrow.
Yes, thank you.
Again.
Tomorrow I will be coming back at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and I have permission to read all 3 books in this series. So definitely there is more. I hope that you all have a great evening.